Hey everybody, welcome back to NASCAR Report today. I'm really glad you are here today because honestly, this is one of those episodes where I have to just stop and say a lot is happening right now in the NASCAR world, and most of it is centered around one place this weekend, Dover Motor Speedway, the Monster Mile. And if you have been following NASCAR for any real length of time, you already know that Dover is not just another stop on the schedule. This track has a personality of its own. It demands respect from every single driver that rolls through the pit, and this weekend it is going to be the stage for the All-Star race. But what makes this particular All-Star weekend different from anything we have seen in recent memory is that two enormous stories are both hitting at the exact same time, and both of them are connected to a bigger question that NASCAR fans have been asking. How do you make the All-Star race feel truly special again? And I want to take some real time today to break both of these stories down the right way, because I think each one of them deserves a serious conversation. Not just a quick headline, not just a hot take, but a real discussion about what it means for the drivers, the teams, the fans, and the long-term direction of this sport. So let's get into it. Before we talk about the new tire setup or Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s wild idea, I want to spend a few minutes just talking about Dover itself. Because I think sometimes fans who did not grow up watching NASCAR in the 90s or early 2000s might not fully appreciate just how unique and brutal this place really is. Dover Motor Speedway has been nicknamed the Monster Mile for a reason. The track is 1 mile long, but it is not your typical oval. The banking in the corners sits at 24 degrees, which sounds like a number, but when you're inside a stock car pushing 500 horsepower through those turns at over 150 miles per hour, that banking is absolutely working on every single part of your car constantly. The surface at Dover is concrete, not asphalt, concrete. And that matters more than most casual fans realize, because concrete behaves completely differently than asphalt during a race. It does not absorb heat the same way. It does not develop rubber the same way. And the grip levels can change in ways that are very hard for teams to predict ahead of time. Drivers have talked about Dover for decades like it is one of the most physically and mentally demanding tracks they visit all year. The car never really settles at Dover. You're constantly correcting, constantly loading the right side through the corners, constantly fighting the steering wheel. And once the track starts changing during the race, which it always does, a car that felt great in practice can suddenly become a complete handful. Handling can go away fast at Dover. And when your handling goes away at a track with this much banking and this much speed, it is not a comfortable feeling. That physical and mechanical stress on the cars, combined with the demands on the drivers themselves, is exactly why tire strategy has always been so important. Fresh tires at Dover can make the difference between being able to race somebody and getting eaten alive on the outside. And that brings us directly to the first big story of this. NASCAR officially confirmed that Goodyear is bringing an entirely new tire setup specifically designed for the 2026 All-Star Race weekend. And when I say this is a big deal, I want you to understand exactly why. This is not a minor adjustment. This is not Goodyear swapping out one compound for another like they do occasionally throughout the season. This is a purpose-built tire setup for a specific event at one of the most demanding tracks on the circuit. That tells you that Goodyear and NASCAR sat down together and decided that Dover in an all-star format needed something specifically engineered for the conditions this track creates. Goodyear's NASCAR product manager Rick Hendrick explained the thinking behind this new setup. He said the company used data gathered earlier this season from Bristol Motor Speedway, along with data from Dover last year, to build this tire package. Now, that connection to Bristol is important and worth understanding. Bristol is also a concrete track, and while it is very different from Dover in terms of size and shape, there are mechanical similarities in how tires behave on concrete surfaces at both places. So Goodyear was not starting from scratch here. They had real race data to work with. But the key thing Hendrick said was that these tires were specifically designed to withstand Dover's heavy corner loads and high speed, while also helping lay rubber down onto the concrete. Because here's the thing about Dover that a lot of fans might not think about. Dover is actually very smooth compared to a lot of other tracks. And on a smooth surface, the rubber that comes off the tires during a race can actually build up and create a groove that evolves throughout the event. That groove is everything. When rubber builds in the groove at a concrete track, the grip levels in that lane start to improve. Teams can find more speed in a part of the track that maybe was not as fast at the start of the race. But outside the groove, where there is no rubber, grip can actually fall off and become less predictable as the race goes on. So now you've got a situation where the track is almost telling drivers where to go and where not to go, and the groove can shift or widen or tighten depending on how much rubber has been laid down. Teams have to pay attention to this in real time and adjust accordingly. Now throw a brand new tire setup into that already complicated equation, and suddenly the level of uncertainty goes way up. Teams have Bristol data and Dover data from last year to work with, but this specific tire has not been raced at Dover before. Nobody has a perfect picture of how it is going to fall off over a long. Nobody knows exactly how it is going to interact with the rubber buildup, and that information is going to develop in real time during the race. And the crew chiefs and engineers who process it the fastest are going to have a serious advantage. And there is another layer to this that I want to make sure I explain properly. Goodyear confirmed that Cup Series teams are getting an additional tire set specifically for qualifying because the All-Star format includes the Pit Crew Challenge during time trials. This is huge. The Pit Crew Challenge being tied directly into qualifying means pit crews are not just a part of the race week. They are part of the competitive format. One bad pit stop, one dropped lug nut, one slightly slow tire change during qualifying could directly affect where a team starts the race. So now you've got crews under pressure before the green flag even drops on the main. That is the kind of detail that sounds small when you first hear it, but it changes how teams prepare for the entire week. Crew chiefs, who normally focus almost entirely on strategy and race setup, now have to make sure their pit crew is sharp and ready for competition during time trials. The pit crew coach becomes a much more important voice in those team meetings on Friday. And for teams that have weaker pit crews, this format puts an extra burden on them before the race even begins. And it is not just the Cup Series getting new rubber this weekend. NASCAR also confirmed that the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series and the Craftsman Truck Series are both getting a new right side tire combination specifically designed to better handle the heavy corner loads and high speeds. So this is a coordinated effort across multiple levels of NASCAR to make sure that the racing at Dover this weekend is as competitive and demanding as possible. Goodyear is not just experimenting with one series on one day. They are committed to this new approach across the entire week. So what does all of this mean for the actual racing? Let me tell you what I think it means, and then I want you to tell me if you agree or disagree down in the comments. When you have a brand new tire setup at a track as demanding as Dover, tire degradation becomes the #1 storyline of the race. Tire fall off, meaning how much grip a tire loses as it gets older during a run, can completely change the competitive order over the course of a long segment. A driver who started a run on old tires might be running in the top 5 and looking comfortable. But if those tires start to fall off hard in laps 30 through 40, he is suddenly a sitting duck for somebody on fresher rubber. And the reverse is also true. A driver who pits early for fresh tires might lose track position, but have the best car on the track in the closing laps of a segment. Crew chiefs are going to be watching their tire data like hawks during this race. They're going to be calculating when the fall off starts, how severe it gets, and whether the tires on their driver's car are behaving the same way the tires on the cars around. Because at Dover, even a small difference in tire wear can create a massive gap in lap times over a long. And here's the part that makes this especially interesting for an all-star race. During a normal points race, crew chiefs are conservative. They think about the championship implications of every decision. They do not take risks they do not have to take. But in an all-star race, there are no points. Nobody is protecting a playoff position. Nobody is worried about a bad finish hurting their seasons. The only thing on the line is the prize money and the pride of winning one of the most unique events of the year. That freedom encourages crew chiefs to gamble in ways they would never attempt in a normal race. Aggressive pit strategies, staying out under caution when everybody else pits, taking a car to the limit on tire wear, and hoping the caution falls at exactly the right moment. All of that gets amplified in an all-star form, and now you're adding a tire package that nobody has perfect data on into that already chaotic environment. Clean air is usually everything at Dover. Once a driver gets to the front and gets clean air over the nose of his car, the aero advantage is enormous. Following somebody through the corners at Dover is difficult because you lose front grip in dirty air and the car starts to push. That normally makes it hard to pass at the front of the field. But heavy tire degradation can flip that dynamic completely. If the leader is pushing hard and burning his tires up, trying to hold the gap, and the guy in second is managing his equipment a little more carefully, the gap can start to shrink even though the leader has clean air. And late in a run, when those tires are really gone, all of a sudden passes that should not be possible start happening because the leader simply does not have the grip to hold his line. That is the kind of racing that creates moment. That is the kind of racing that people talk about for years. And honestly, the combination of new tires, an all-star format, and Dover Motor Speedway has the potential to give us exactly that. Okay, so now let us shift to the second big story because this one is a little different. This one is not about tires or race formats or technical details. This one is about an idea, a big idea, a genuinely crazy idea that came from one of the most respected voices in NASCAR, Dale Earnhardt Jr. Dale Jr. threw out a suggestion recently that immediately split the NASCAR fan base right down the middle. He said he wants to see multi-class racing in NASCAR's All-Star race. And I mean truly multi-class racing in the traditional sense, not just different types of Cup cars. He is talking about combining all three national series, the Craftsman Truck Series, the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, and the Cup Series, into one giant invite-only all-star event where all three classes are on the track at the same time, competing simultaneously. Now, I know your first reaction to that might be the same as mine was. That sounds absolutely insane. That sounds dangerous. That sounds like it would never work. But before you completely dismiss it, let me explain why I think it is at least worth taking seriously as a conversation. Because the more I have thought about it over the last few days, the more I can see what Dale Jr. is actually trying to accomplish. First, you have to understand the context. NASCAR just officially confirmed the new 2026 All-Star race form, and it is already a significant departure from anything we have seen in recent years. The event at Dover will feature a 350-lap race broken into multiple segments. The opening segment is 75 laps, and it sets the competitive order. Then the second segment is also 75 laps, but it inverts the top 26 finishers from segment 1. Think about what that means. The fastest guys from the first segment start at the back of the second segment. The guys who struggled in segment 1 get an opportunity to show what they can do from the front. That inversion alone is going to create chaos and drama and completely unpredictable racing. Then the final segment is 200 laps. That is the main event. The field for the final segment includes race winners from the 2025 and 2026 seasons, former Cup champions who are competing full-time, the winner of the fan vote, and then the remaining spots are filled based on combined finishes from the first two segments. So it's not just points, guys. It is not just whoever has the most wins. It is a true all-star format that rewards performance over the course of the full weekend rather than just showing up because you won one race during the season. That format is already dramatic. That format already gives fans a reason to pay close attention to every segment. NASCAR clearly puts serious thought into making this race feel important and competitive in its own right. And that is great. That is exactly the direction the All-Star race needs to go. But Dale Jr. looked at all of that and said, why not go even further? Why not make the field truly exclusive and then bring in the trucks and the O'Reilly cars as well? He said you could tighten the restrictions on how drivers even qualify for the event to make being selected for the All-Star race feel like a real honor, and then fill the rest of the grid with trucks and O'Reilly cars competing in their own class simultaneously. And when he described how slower cars create unique challenges in multi-class racing, I think that is where his real vision for this thing starts to become clear. Because multi-class racing is not a new concept in motorsport. Le Mans has been doing it for decades. The IMSA series does it every single weekend. In those formats, faster prototype cars are racing on the same track at the same time as slower GT. They are not racing against each other directly. They are racing within their own class. But they're on the same track, navigating around each other, dealing with traffic, dealing with the unpredictability that comes from having vehicles of different speeds and sizes sharing the same piece of real estate. Now imagine that at Dover. Imagine Cup cars running at full speed, trying to manage lap traffic that includes trucks. Trucks that are also racing hard within their own class. O'Reilly cars in the middle of all of it, trying to do the same thing. The Cup drivers would have to manage traffic in a way that they almost never have to think about during a race. The truck and O'Reilly drivers would have the wildly unique experience of racing on the same track as the best Cup drivers in the world. And the strategy involved in when to hold your line and when to move over and when to make a pass versus when to protect a running lane would become enormously complicated for every team at every level of the sport. Would it work perfectly? Probably not on the first try. Would there be crashes? Almost certainly. Would the rule book for how the three classes interact on track be a complicated mess to figure out? Absolutely. These are real problems with this idea, and I do not want to pretend they are not. Safety would have to be the first and most important conversation, because the speed differential between a cup car and a truck on a track as fast as Dover is significant, and managing that safely would require serious planning. But here's what I keep coming back to when I think about this idea. The All-Star race has been searching for an identity for a long time now. It has changed formats multiple times. It has moved venues. It has tried different gimmicks. And while some of those experiments have produced exciting moments, the event has never fully recaptured the cultural weight it had during its peak years in the late 80s and through the 90s. Back then, the All-Star race felt genuinely important. Drivers wanted to win it badly. Fans circled it on the calendar. It felt like its own thing, not just a points race without points. Dale Jr.'s idea, as crazy as it sounds, at least answers the question of how you make this race feel truly different. If you have trucks and O'Reilly cars racing alongside Cup cars at Dover Motor Speedway, there is nothing else in American motorsport that looks like that. It would be completely unique. It would be something fans could not see anywhere else. And in a sports entertainment landscape where every series is competing for eyeballs and attention, being completely unique is incredibly valuable. Now, NASCAR is not doing this idea. They have confirmed the format they're going with, and multi-class racing at Dover is not part of it. Dale Jr. is throwing this out as a concept, as a starting point for a conversation, not as an official proposal that is on NASCAR's desk waiting for approval. But the fact that somebody with Dale Jr.'s credibility and his deep connection to the sport is putting this idea into the conversation publicly says something important. It says that people who care deeply about NASCAR understand that the All-Star race needs to keep evolving, keep pushing, keep trying new things until it finds its identity. So let me bring both of these stories together now, because I think they actually point to the same underlying truth about where NASCAR is right now. The sport is willing to experiment. The sport is willing to take risks. And that is a genuinely encouraging thing to see. The new Goodyear tire package is a real experiment. Teams are going to be figuring out how this tire behaves in real time during the All-Star race at one of the most demanding tracks on the circuit. The results could be spectacular racing, or they could be confusing and messy. Nobody knows for sure. That uncertainty is actually the point. NASCAR and Goodyear decided that Dover, during an all-star format, was the right moment to try something new, to gather data, to see how it plays out in a competitive environment where the stakes are high enough to matter, but the championship consequences are removed. Dale Jr.'s multi-class idea is also an experiment in the sense that somebody with real knowledge of the sport is willing to put a wild idea out there publicly and let fans and people inside the garage react to it. That is how sports evolve. Somebody says something that sounds crazy, people debate it, some of the idea gets refined or modified, and eventually a version of it might actually make it onto the track. And both of these things connect back to that central question. How do you make the All-Star race feel truly special again? I think the honest answer is that you do it the same way the race became special in the place. You take risks. You embrace unpredictability. You give the best drivers in the sport a stage and a format that pushes them to do things they cannot do during a normal race week. You create an environment where strategies matter, where drivers are racing for something they genuinely want to win, and where fans watching at home or in the grandstands genuinely do not know what is going to happen next. Dover's Monster Mile is the right venue for that kind of racing. This track does not reward passivity. It does not allow drivers to just ride around and man. If you are at Dover, the track is going to make you earn everything. And a new tire setup on top of that brutal surface, combined with an all-star format that encourages aggression and creative strategy, sounds to me like exactly the kind of environment where special moments happen. Look, I will be honest with you guys. I have been watching NASCAR for a long time, and there are periods in this sport's history where the racing and the off-track conversations both feel flat, where it feels like the sport is just going through the motions, ticking off races on the schedule without any real momentum or energy behind them. And then there are periods where something shifts, where you can feel the sport waking up, paying attention to itself, trying things, experimenting, creating conversations that people outside the hardcore fan base actually want to join. Right now, around this All-Star weekend at Dover, it feels like one of those second moments. I'm seeing real energy in the garage. I am seeing drivers and team officials talking about this race with genuine enthusiasm. I am seeing fans online debating these ideas with the kind of passion you want to see around a sport you love. And whether that translates into the actual racing on the track being everything we hope it will be, I cannot promise you that. Nobody can. Races are unpredictable. That is partly the point. But the conversations happening around this race, the new tire package, the format changes, Dale Jr.'s multi-class concept, all of it together makes this All-Star weekend feel meaningful in a way that it has not felt in a while. And as a NASCAR fan, that is really satisfying to watch. So here is where I want to land today. This Dover All-Star weekend has two genuinely massive stories attached to it, and they are both worth your attention. The Goodyear tire change is real. It is happening this weekend, and it could fundamentally alter the way the race plays out on the track. Tire wear strategy is going to be the conversation in every garage stall all weekend long. The crew chiefs who figure out this new tire package the fastest are going to have a serious competitive advantage. And the drivers who manage their equipment over a long run while also staying aggressive enough to not lose track position are going to be the ones standing in victory lane when this thing is over. Dale Jr.'s multi-class idea is a concept, not a reality. But it is a concept worth talking about seriously because it represents exactly the kind of bold thinking the All-Star race needs right now. Whether it ever happens in its full form or some version of it shows up down the road, the conversation itself is valuable. It pushes NASCAR to keep thinking about what makes this event special and what it could become. And for right now, in this moment, the NASCAR All-Star race at Dover Motor Speedway genuinely feels important. Fans are engaged. Drivers are talking. Teams are preparing for something they believe could surprise them. And the Monster Mile is waiting to do what it always does. Make everybody work for it. I honestly cannot wait to see how this weekend plays out. And I want to hear from you. Do you like what Goodyear is doing with the new tire package at Dover? Do you think the tire strategy angle is going to make the All-Star race more exciting? Or do you think new tires this late in the game just creates confusion? And what about Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s idea? Would you watch a multi-class All-Star race with trucks, O'Reilly cars, and Cup cars all on the track at the same time? Is it genius or is it too far? Drop your thoughts down in the comments right now, because I know NASCAR fans are going to have strong opinions on all of this, and I genuinely want to read every single one of them. And if you enjoyed today's video, please hit that like button, because it really does help this channel grow, and it helps us reach more NASCAR fans who want honest, real coverage of this sport every single day. Make sure you subscribe to NASCAR Report today so you do not miss anything this weekend at Dover, because we're going to be covering every angle of this all-star race from the tire data to the strategy calls to whatever wild thing happens on track that nobody saw coming. This is what NASCAR Report today is all about. Real fans, real conversations, real coverage of the best racing. I will see you in the next one.